Hello everyone, welcome to another day in the clown decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And boy, yesterday did they get worse. Because 2 children were killed and 9 others were stabbed on Monday when a hooded man launched a knife attack in a Taylor Swift-themed dance class. The attack began just before midday in Southport, Merseyside, as the children, some as young as 6, were enjoying the workshop at the beginning of the school holidays. 6 of the wounded children remained in critical condition on Monday night and were being treated at hospitals across the northwest. 2 adults were present at the dance and yoga class and tried to intervene. They were also being treated for stab wounds and were said to be in critical condition. Now, those 2 adults, I think, deserve medals, but we'll get into that in a sec. Merseyside police confirmed that a 17-year-old boy from the village of Banks, about 5 miles away from Southport, had been arrested and was being questioned on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. Which, I'm pretty sure that this is going to be a clear-cut case of you are going to jail for life, and then Labour will probably release him 5 years into his sentence. The youth, who cannot be named for legal reasons, i.e. because he's under the age of 18, and is originally from Cardiff. Now, this was a point that an awful lot of lefties on Twitter were pointing out, because obviously a lot of people on the right were getting ahead of themselves, saying, oh, this is due to migration, this is because we can't stop small boats, etc, etc, etc. And a lot of lefties were online saying, oh, well, he was born in Cardiff, therefore he's Welsh. Despite the fact that, right in the same paragraph, he moved to the Southport area with his Rwandan parents when he was aged 6. Now, it's a question that I always bring up to these lefties, and I think you should too if you're on Twitter. You need to directly ask them, was George Orwell Indian? Was Rudyard Kipling Indian? There's plenty of examples of Brits being born abroad who you would not consider of the country of their birth, because they're British. But anyway, I typically don't go too hard on the whole this would never have happened if we didn't have mass immigration line until we actually know the ethnicity of these things and, at least wait for the people involved to stop grieving. But obviously, that being a massive culture war issue, I don't really expect that from other people. In a press conference, Chief Constable Serena Kennedy of Merseyside Police said that while the incident was not being treated as terror-related, colleagues from counter-terror policing had offered to assist with the investigation. Now, just because it's not initially being treated as a terror-related incident doesn't mean that it wasn't terror-related. This happened with the Brianna Jai case, where originally it wasn't being investigated as a hate crime, and then when the charges came through in court, hate crime was brought up quite a few times. And with counter-terror police offering their assistance, it's likely that the police do think it's terror-related. She said the motivation behind the attack remained unclear, which obviously they will do for now. This does genuinely seem like a completely random attack. Trying to attack some of the most defenceless people on the planet as well. Kids with the ages ranging from like 6 to 9 or something like that, with 2 parents looking after them? Or 2 adults looking after them, I should say. And there's been plenty of people saying, well, why has this happened? Why would they do this? The main and uncomfortable reason behind it is probably because the deterrent isn't good enough. Because people seriously do not see law and order in this country. And so when you're psychotic enough to think, oh, I just feel like stabbing today, why would you not? You've recently seen in the news that Labour are releasing prisoners. Maybe it's worth having a short sentence to play into your really dark fantasy. Or, again, maybe there is some deeper terror-related reasoning for it, but it's impossible to say at the moment because we don't know anything yet. Ms Kennedy said that her officers arrived to find children subjected to a ferocious attack, adding, we believe the adults who were injured were bravely trying to protect the children who were being attacked. Again, give them a medal, we'll go into detail on them in a sec. She went on, as a mum and a nana, I can't begin to imagine the pain and suffering that the families of the victims are going through at this time. Standard things you expect to hear in situations like this. The Taylor Swift-themed workshop had been organised by Leanne Lucas, a local teacher, and was intended to coincide with the start of the school holidays. About 25 children aged between 6 and 11 signed up for the event, which was due to last 2 hours from 10 a.m. until midday. Witnesses described how just after 11:45 a.m. the attacker allegedly pulled up at the dance studio, which is situated in a small business centre behind a residential street, in a taxi, and then got out without paying. One witness claimed he had a black hooded top, pulled up and was wearing a COVID-style face mask. He walked into the studio through the front door, which was unlocked for fire safety reasons. And this was something that I was hearing on BBC Radio 4 when they were talking about this incident. They were saying that, oh, schools, they keep their gates locked during the day. Other things where children are typically at, nurseries and things like that, they typically have quite high security with the gates being locked. And, obviously some schools even need metal detectors to make sure kids aren't carrying knives on them when they get into school. And they were saying, oh, maybe the government need to now regulate community centres where kids' events are happening to have higher security. And I just think we live in a world of madness if that is the point we are at. We have so little control over crime, so little control over violence, so little control over the people in this country, and such low trust as a society that everywhere basically has to be locked up from the outside world. Because we have people who think they can get away with just getting out a taxi and stabbing 9 kids. Well, it was more than that, actually. It was 11 kids and 2 adults. And it's just completely trying to avoid the actual core root of the issue. It's trying to deal with symptoms. Oh, just keep them locked out of everywhere and then they can't stab anyone in these places. Okay, well then they do it on the street anyway. Is that any better? No, the fact of the matter is that even with the past decades of Tory rule, we have been soft on criminals. And we appear to be getting softer on criminals with Labour in charge. I mean, I honestly don't think it's a coincidence that one of the first things they do is release a load of prisoners, and then we effectively get a crime wave. And I do mean a crime wave. People living close by described hearing shrieks and screams before blood-soaked children began running from the building. Parents, hysterical with panic, dashed to the scene, desperate to find their children. One witness said she had seen a mother at the scene, adding she was screaming, "My daughter has been stabbed." The woman was in hysterics. Colin Parry, owner of Masters Vehicle Body Repairs on Hart Street, called the police and said mothers were screaming as they arrived on the scene. He said it's like a scene from a horror movie. Mr. Parry added it's like something from America, not like sunny Southport. Oh, shut up. I won't be too harsh on him because he has just seen horrific scenes, but still. I won't go through any more details of this article because I really do want to get to the hero adults, but again, England does not feel safe at all at the moment. People are now not going to feel safe leaving their kids for a couple of hours at a Taylor Swift dance lesson. You got to realise, 50 years ago, when my parents were in their early teens, they would have just been left to their own devices for entire Saturdays and Sundays. They'd be able to walk miles from their home to parks, to towns, to wherever. They'd generally be trusted with that. You go back even further, and my grandmother would talk constantly about how she'd cycle 15 miles away from her home and feel perfectly safe. In fact, she constantly talked about how she'd see German prisoners of war and how she'd wave at them and feel safe even with prisoners of war about. And this is how ridiculous it's got at the moment. The country literally feels less safe than my grandmother living through World War II. That is how bad things have gotten at the moment. Anyway, a couple of the heroes of the story. A businessman who tried to disarm Southport attacker stabbed in the leg. Jonathan Hayes, who intervened after hearing screams from dance studio next door, office due to have surgery. A businessman tried to disarm the Southport knifeman after hearing screams from his office, the Telegraph can reveal. Jonathan Hayes, 63, what a hero, was stabbed in the leg after running to the dance studio in a desperate attempt to intervene. He's probably actually saved lives, to be quite honest with you. I know 2 were lost and 9 are in critical condition, but he has probably saved more lives by intervening and taking a hit in the leg. His wife Helen, 57, told the Telegraph that he regrets that he couldn't do more to stop the ferocious attack that left 2 children dead. I'm sure he does. Not everyone can be the ultimate hero, though. But he did his duty, did what he could, and as I say, every adult involved who tried to intervene deserves a medal. Asked if Mr. Hayes had tried to put himself between the knifeman and the children, she said he did. He heard screams. Our office is in the same building as the dance studio. He heard screams and went outside, saw the attacker, saw that he had hurt a child, and tried to take the knife off him and got stabbed in the leg. And obviously he should consider himself lucky it was only his leg that got stabbed, but it is absolutely every duty of every adult to protect children. That is obviously what every adult should do, and that's why I'm sure everyone agrees the man deserves a medal. The dance studio is tucked away down a little alley. You wouldn't know that it was a children's dance studio there just by walking past. You'd have to know it was there. That makes this story so much worse. That implies that the knifeman literally targeted children, and specifically targeted this dance studio, which, again, apparently you'd have to know it was there. Kind of also implies that this guy used to go to this dance studio, by the way. I've been with him all afternoon at the hospital. He's very upset he wasn't able to help more. Physically, he will be okay. Mentally, I don't know. Well, honestly, mentally, I think he should be very proud of himself. 2 adults were also present at the dance and yoga class and tried to intervene. They're also being treated for stab wounds and said to be in critical condition. Again, hopefully these 2 adults survive. They're in critical condition but at the hospital, so their chances aren't too bad, but these 2 adults deserve medals as well. Merseyside police confirmed that a 17-year-old boy from the village of Banks, about 5 miles away, had been arrested. You know all this bit, he has Rwandan parents, born in Cardiff, and obviously it is not being treated as terror-related, though counter-terror policing has offered to help in the investigation. You know the rest of the details we know for now. But before we move on, this clip has to be brought up, because while it seems from the police and adults present at the stabbing side of things, well, we're all pretty good, the BBC gives one of, I think, the worst analysis you can give to this situation.
Daniel, mass stabbings in this country are extremely rare, aren't they?
They are extremely rare.
I mean, it's all in context. Mass stabbings were not a thing as I was growing up. You rarely heard about them. Knife crime has absolutely exploded in my 20s. Hell, London alone, you seem to can't go a week without a stabbing incident. But I suppose when it comes to mass stabbings, which typically mean 3 or more people were stabbed at an event, yeah, they are quite rare, but again, it's all in context. They're way more common than they were 10, 20 years ago.
Obviously, we've had some very high-profile mass stabbings which have been linked to terrorism, and then we've had some exceptionally distressing mass stabbings, most infamously, of course, in Dunblane.
Yes, that is right. He said Dunblane. For those of you who don't know, that was not a stabbing. That was a shooting. A very high-profile shooting that led to massive restrictions on gun control, and is basically one of the main reasons that Americans see Britain as kind of a meme when it comes to gun control, because, yeah, that's the reason. If you own a gun, you need it in a bolted-down safe somewhere on your property, or it needs to be stored at a gun club. And even then, they are quite hard to get. And then the ammunition, even harder to get. I mean, especially when you compare it to America.
Back in 1996, I believe that was.
Well, they got the date of the mass shooting incident correct, but honestly, it's embarrassing that a BBC analyst got something so basic so wrong, and on such a serious issue.
When a significant number of primary school children were stabbed to death in a mass stabbing. But
again, he doubled down on it. Mass stabbing? No, it was not a mass stabbing. He killed 16 pupils and injured 15 others. It's the deadliest mass shooting in British history. It is the worst mass shooting that we have ever had. And this guy thinks it's a stabbing for some reason.
This is not something that is in any way common, and the number of mass stabbings involving children on this scale, really the only one I can immediately think of is the Dunblane Primary School incident in 1996.
I love how he knows the detail of the date, but misses the rather large detail of it was a shooting, not a stabbing. Honestly, I'm glad 500,000 people have cancelled their licence fee last year, and I hope that goes even further. They can't even get analysts who get basic, massive parts of stories correct. Anyway, this was not the only scene of violence yesterday. 2 people have been taken to hospital after a woman approached them with a bag, leading them to feel unwell. Avon and Somerset police said it was called to reports of a woman approaching people in Saul Street in Bath at about 2:30. 2 people were experiencing breathing difficulties and itchy eyes as a result, the force said. A cordon was put in place but has now been lifted as officers deem it safe to be removed. Yeah, there was a chemical attack in Bath. Dakota Nicole said he was leaving for work when he saw the scene. It was quite frightening because it was so close to work. I saw people in hazmat suits, loads of ambulances, police cars. I've never seen anything like this before. It was out of the ordinary. Police were called by the ambulance service just after 3 o'clock. A police spokesperson earlier said officers were working with ambulances and fire crews and had well-rehearsed plans for responding to such incidents. Well, that's good to hear. As a precaution, emergency personnel were wearing protective clothing, they added. The spokesperson said the cordon was put in place as our priority was to ensure public safety. And this article is quite short, but doesn't mention that quite a few other people also reported feeling sick in the area. So, yeah, this was definitely a chemical attack and something that I think we should, again, keep an eye on. But pretty crazy that in one day we had a chemical attack and a mass stabbing. Anyway, this last story about violence, technically it happened on Saturday but was only reported yesterday, so I'm adding it in. This was the scenes at Dovedale Stepping Stones in the Peak District.
Go across the stepping stones, you'll have the chance. He's fighting!
I mean, yeah, a couple were just recording scenes of a rather large-scale brawl in the Peak District. Peak District beauty spot sees mass brawl, according to the BBC. A confrontation between two groups of people at a Derbyshire beauty spot is being investigated by the police. Mobile phone footage shows sticks being waved and punches thrown at stepping stones in Dovedale. Officers have confirmed that they had reports of a fight at 2:30 on Saturday, including claims of a child being hit. The stones, which are one of the most popular sites in the Peak District, are officially closed while awaiting repair work after winter storm damage. Yes, but I want to know why this mass brawl happened. A spokesman for Derbyshire Police said, "We received a call just before 20:03 on Saturday 27 July to report an altercation between two groups at Dovedale Stepping Stones near Tissington in the Peak District. The caller reported that a child in his party had been hit during the disturbance and that an attempt was made to steal his wife's purse. We are aware of a video of the incident circulating online, and there were a large number of people in the area at the time of the incident who may have information that could help us with our inquiries." I've been on plenty of walks in the countryside in my time. I have done D&V in the Peak District. I have done D&V in the Lake District. I have been in nature quite a lot when doing geology work. I have never heard of a child being punched in the face and someone having their purse nicked, ever, while in the countryside. Again, this is just kind of a microcosm of issues we're seeing in Britain. Standards absolutely everywhere are dropping. But again, I'd love to know the reason behind what happened in this video, because I'm not being funny, but the people in the video who were all watching and spectating, they all seem to be on the more, white British ethnicity, whereas the people that they are watching tend to be on the more diverse side of things. And it does just beg the question, how has it managed to get to this point where somehow, probably for the first time in my life, there has been a brawl in the news that is newsworthy, by the way, a brawl that is newsworthy happening in the countryside. I can't say I've ever seen it before. And it just seems to be one of those things that everyone is noticing. Everyone seems to see the lack in standards. And then when someone like, I don't know, Nigel Farage points out that this might be because of a rather large change in demographics over the past few years, that might be related to it, that's seen as completely uncouth even by people on the centre-right. Well, I'm sorry, but it's just something that even normies are noticing at this point. So the National Trust who own the land said, an incident occurred at Stepping Stones in Dovedale this weekend as two groups of walkers attempted to cross the stepping stones in opposite directions. The situation was resolved quickly, but we understand that disturbances of this kind can be upsetting for visitors. This happened over them trying to cross the stepping stones in the opposite direction, and apparently neither were polite enough to say, no, you go first. I have crossed thin bridges. I have crossed stones. I have crossed rivers. And if I'm in the way of someone, I let them pass through because that is basic politeness. Other people have allowed me to pass through because of basic politeness. Apparently this all broke down due to a basic lack of politeness, according to the National Trust. We would urge people to treat each other respectfully when exploring the countryside. We also like to remind visitors that stepping stones are currently closed because of storm damage, and signs are in place asking visitors not to use them. So they ignored signs not to use them as well. How has this happened? I hate to say it, but could these people understand the signs you put out? Was that where the issue came in? A spokesperson for Derbyshire County Council, which is responsible for the repairs, said it was still in the process of getting permission from Natural England to work at the site. I find that last bit just a cherry on top. The people responsible for repairing this beauty spot still need bureaucratic permission to actually get the repairs done. This is modern day England in a nutshell. This is modern day England in a nutshell. Complete lack of standards have led to a breakdown in civility, and then they weren't even supposed to be using the area where the lack of civility caused the brawl to break out. They weren't even supposed to be there using the damn thing. And then the people who were supposed to be repairing it are still waiting on bureaucratic permission to even repair the damn thing. This story had everything. Anyway, I think with that, that's everything I've got for you today. So please join us over on the Worcester Club tonight, where I will be talking with a panel about our hobbies and how we got into them. It's quite a chill stream, one that I think everyone needs at a point like this. One that is more escapism than anything else. Tomorrow, in the late evening, about 11:15, we will be finishing off the Worcester Club series on Britain's mistakes in the 19th century when it came to foreign policy, and we will be focusing on our mistakes when it comes to America. Thursday, I'm going to be on a stream on Alfred the Great's channel. Just, again, another relaxed stream talking about current events with him and SJJ. If they are two channels you have not heard before, I would follow myself on Twitter so that you know where to find me for that stream and so that you can watch it. Either that or the Discord, I will be shilling it to there too. Saturday, because I've got a very busy week, it will be Laughing at the Guardian time, so come along to that. I've got 2 confirmed guests, I just need a third one. And then finally on Sunday, because I have an extra busy week, I will be on stream with my girlfriend and a few other guests doing funny animal stories and funny Reddit stories to raise money for an independent hedgehog rescuer. So please come along to all those streams, and I hope to see you all there in the chat. Anyway, that's shilling done, and that's everything I had for you today. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.